Welcome to All Home Care Matters, the show where we discuss all things home care, with discussions on important age-related matters and topics. Brought to you by Enriched Life Home Care Services, the #1 rated home care provider in Michigan by Top Rated Local.
Hello, and welcome back to All Home Care Matters. If this is your first time visiting us here at the show, we want to say thank you for taking time out to be with us today. We appreciate how valuable everyone's time is, and that's why we try and make each episode here at All Home Care Matters something that will hopefully matter to you. Today, we are honored to welcome 3 remarkable women, the co-founders of AlzAuthors, Jean Lee, Marianne Sciucco, and Vicki Tapia. Welcome, ladies. How are you?
Oh, great, Lance.
Well, it's exciting to have all 3 of you here. I think all 3 of you have been on before, but not just the 3 of you. I think there's been others that have joined you. But we're excited to have just the 3 of you today because you guys really are the originals of AlzAuthors, the 3 co-founders. An incredible story about how you all came together to, come up with what everybody knows now as AlzAuthors. And this is a very special episode, and we wanted to talk about, the history of AlzAuthors, the history of your relationships and how it all came to be, and just share a lot of these great memories. I want to start with Marianne and really ask you, Marianne, we talk about AlzAuthors. Everybody pretty much knows what it is and what it's about today. But when you were first thinking of getting this created, what were your visions for AlzAuthors?
Well, I really didn't have any kind of visions. I was just putting together a team of people who had written a book on Alzheimer's or dementia to help promote each other. It was not altruistic at all. It was all self-promotional. I thought that together, we had more, could build more leverage working together than working alone, just trying to get our books out into the marketplace. And I had met Jean online. She had reached out to me about her book, or actually she had reached out to me about my book initially and then her book. And everything kind of just grew from this little tiny seedling that had there was no vision, there was no plan. And we certainly didn't know that we would become such good friends and be here like 10 years later, continuing to grow and do. So
and I
had modeled, go on.
Go ahead. No, I interrupted you.
I had modeled it after another author group that I belonged to, which was called Clean Indie Reads. And what they did was they all together would cross-promote one another's books and blogs and sales. And it was a really strong community. I mean, they had like 5,000 members. And I was like came in early in the game on that one. And one day it just dawned on me, why don't I see if I can find other people who have written books on Alzheimer's and dementia, and we could try to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. And I was lucky because I did find people who were interested in doing that. So that was the initial run. It was a 1-month campaign, and that was all we intended. But at the end of the month, we discovered that we had made friendships and we liked working together. So we just decided to keep going.
That's incredible. Well, I'm going to go to Jean, Marianne, because you mentioned her. Jean, you wrote the book, Alzheimer's Daughter. Yeah, I've read it. We have a couple of copies here, and it's just a tremendous book. And I've shared this with you in the past. We've handed it out to families who just could not say enough about it, who were a daughter taking care of a mother with Alzheimer's through our company. But I want you to describe the feeling of aloneness you must have felt when both of your parents were diagnosed with Alzheimer's on the same day, and why you decided to write that book.
So the feeling of aloneness, I'm not sure that actually is a word, but it was such a lonely feeling. Yes, Mom and Dad were diagnosed on the same day, but that was not unexpected. My sister and I had suspected that there were changes in them for quite some time. And my sister lived in Florida. I live in Ohio. So I was alone in that, except for phone calls to her. But it was just, I was working full time. It was, how do I get through this? How do I take care of them? How do I safeguard them either in their home, or how do I get them into a care community where they will be watched over and cared for?
Yeah.
The only support I had was digging online for other people who had had a similar journey with parents and were willing to share that. And I found Marianne's Blue Hydrangeas, even though this had not really happened to her, it was fiction that was written in such a realistic way that I could relate to it. And I found Vicki's Somebody Stole My Iron. And these two women gave me the strength to just get up every morning, do my job, put one foot in front of the other, even though I was alone and it was overwhelming. I knew that if Vicki had done it, Marianne had experience through clinical work with this, I knew I could too. So they were my sustaining force. I never had reached out to them, didn't know a thing about them. And I ended up contacting Marianne about her book, saying how much it had meant to me, and sent her my own, thinking, oh, this is Marianne Sciucco. She's going to throw my book in the trash. Who cares? And she read it and got back to me and said, your book is wonderful. Would you work with me to find other works like this so that we can provide support to other people? She said, who else have you read? And I said, Vicki Tapia's Somebody Stole My Iron. And so we reached out to her. But Lance, the other part of that question that you asked is, why did I write the book? And the book really was never intended to be published. It was written for my family. And I wanted them to have a history of what had happened in our family with Alzheimer's. And I'm a teacher. I read to learn, and I wanted to write something good. So I joined a local writing group. They helped me flesh it out. And they said, Jean, this is for a wider audience than your family. And they really pushed me to publish it. So I did. And that's how I met Marianne and Vicki.
Oh, that's incredible. And I just want to stay with you for a moment, Jean. When you look back on these 10 years of building AlzAuthors, what has been the most important takeaway for you?
Wow. The friendships with Marianne and Vicki and our other board members, the friendships that we formed, the support that we have for one another. These people, even as we transition AlzAuthors under the umbrella of all home care matters, these women will still be the dearest friends in my life. And I feel like not only have we formed this deep friendship with one another, but we have healed other people. Yeah. By finding 400 books written from personal experience with Alzheimer's and launching them out into the world. We've healed others, and through that interaction with those authors, I have healed from that aloneness in my journey.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. Vicki, you've been mentioned a couple of times. You're the other co-founder. What has AlzAuthors meant to you, and what has Marianne and Jean meant to you?
The first thing that comes to my mind is the healing process. I'm quite sure I wouldn't be where I am today had I not had these people walk into my life. And what I started to say a few minutes ago was I was a little recalcitrant when Jean asked me, or I don't know, maybe Marianne asked me, and I was like, what? Why would I promote my book with the competition? Very naive, very naive. So, yeah, luckily I didn't listen to myself, and I felt reassured enough by these two women that it was going to be okay. So we we went forth from there. And what was the other part of the question you asked me?
Well, you pretty much summarized it and answered it, but when you look back, like I'd asked Jean about the last 10 years, for you, if you could change anything about those past 10 years, what would you change?
Well, yeah, that is a good question because I would change my I would change my disease. It's going to be 3 years come January that I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Now, not only have I written a story, my dad had Parkinson's related dementia. I've written a story about my parents who both had dementia at the same time. My mom had vascular, and my father had the associated dementia associated with Parkinson's. So I would rather not have that diagnosis because I could stay doing what I'm doing better, longer. There's little things, there's little changes in the past 3 years. I've really been very lucky. Overall, I just do a lot of exercising, which seems to be a good way to slow things down. But I just know I've got little glitches in my brain, which I'm not fond of. And just like I had to ask you to repeat the question, sometimes things don't stick in my mind. So I would get rid of the Parkinson's so I could actually be more active and continue to do what I'm doing.
Yeah. Before we go back to Marianne, we heard how Jean had encountered and first became, you two had became known to her. How did you first become aware of Marianne, and how did that relationship get started?
Well, I think Jean told me the story. She said, this famous writer actually responded to me and read my book, and she said, Jean is saying this, Marianne and I have decided to maybe get together and promote our books together, and we'd like to have 3 people to start with, and you are somebody that I found I can relate to. Both our parents had Alzheimer's at the same time. Are you interested? And that was when I was like, why would I do that? But then I rethought it all. And I think Marianne, just through osmosis, I absorbed her into my life somehow. I don't, did we meet did we actually we didn't physically meet till probably 3 or 4 years later, but I just knew I was going to promote my book with these other 2 ladies, and the back and forth is, how are we going to do it? How long should we do it? Let's do it for a month. Are we going to do it every day? Oh, let's do it 5 days a week. I mean, just all the intricacies of how this was going to even take off. And I figured it would be a month, and if I sold an extra book, great.
Yeah.
So it was, yeah. And I just felt that there was a bond between the 3 of us that was definitely worthwhile.
Well, and I think that bond will last long after, and I don't think that bond's going away anytime soon. Just looking at some of the photos you guys shared and talking about some of the stories before we came on, I want to go back to that famous writer though that's joining us today, Marianne. And Marianne, before I get to this question though, we were talking about how the 3 of you came to finally connect, and you said it was like 2017, 18, right around there, you finally met in person. Marianne, share what that first meeting and encounter was like.
Oh my gosh, it was like out of this world, because I got on this plane in New York to go to Chicago to this conference to meet these women that I had only been corresponding with online and over like Zoom or Google Meet or whatever we were using at the time, email. We had never met in person. So as I was heading out there, I kind of got this real panic attack thinking, well, what if I go out there and these people don't really exist? And this whole thing was just a sham. And they tell you that you're not supposed to go and meet people that you meet on the internet in person. And what am I doing? And I'm like middle-aged. I'm like, I'm not a kid, but yet I fell for this. But I go. And I get to the hotel, and I'm the last one to arrive. And I'm walking down the corridor, looking for my room, carrying my carry-on bag behind me, trying to find the door. And all of a sudden down the hallway, a door opens and this woman steps out, and it's Jean. I recognize her. And she comes out of the hall and looks up and sees me. And I just drop my bag on the floor, and I just start running toward Jean. She starts running toward me, and we're like so elated to see each other in person, you know? I'm like, you're real, you're real. We're holding each other. It was so emotional. We're crying. I mean, because we had been working together now for like 3 years, and this was our first physical contact. So it was just so beautiful. And one of the partners who was there happened to have enough presence of mind to take a picture. So we have pictures of that moment. And just going in, when I go into the hotel room where they all are, and we're just holding on to each other, and everybody, it was such a moment of pure joy.
Yeah.
It really was. And it only happened like one other time after that too, that we've all of us been together in one place.
Yeah. No, that's incredible. And there are some really great pictures of the three of you, and we're fortunate to be able to share those. You know, Marianne, I want to ask you, you know, we were talking to Jean and Vicki about, you know, what would they change? What was their most memorable thing? What do you feel has been the greatest contribution from AlzAuthors to those concerned with dementia over these past 10 years?
I think just being able to gather all of these wonderful books, and we also feature blogs, podcasts, and films, but primarily we're about the books. We have, well, at least 400 books in our collection, but being able to gather them all into one place to make it easy for busy caregivers to find what they need quickly and not be, you know, having to look in a bookstore and be completely overwhelmed, or going online to Amazon or any of the other online booksellers and you know, trying to plug in keywords and see what they get. And then, of course, you need to go through the process of looking at each book and trying to decide if it was worth your time and money, or if it was going to be relevant. And so we've done all of that. We categorized all our books. So if somebody's looking for a book about caring for their mother, they can just look at the books that are about caring for your mother. And if they see something that catches their eye, click on it, and it's going to open up to a blog post written by the author of that book, who explains who they are and why they wrote this book and about their journey, and giving them some information that they might find useful. And there may be a podcast attached to it, so they can actually listen to this person and make a connection before they actually buy the book. So that was kind of like our plan for this, was to make the books more accessible. Because people, like Jean will say, she'd be up late at night after working all day and doing care for her parents. And late at night, when she had some time, scouring the Amazon bookshelves looking for something that might have meaning to her. And it was hard.
Yeah.
And you don't have time to do, people don't have time for that. So we try to make it easy for them. So I think that was like the biggest contribution that we made. And so when we started, there really weren't a lot of books out there. And now there's like hundreds more.
A lot more.
You know, in the last 10 years, it's become a very busy genre.
Yeah.
People are writing books left and right, and people are submitting their books to us to be on our website.
Yeah. And I just personally, I would just add my opinion, you know, Jean, you're scouring Amazon after caring for your mom and working all day to see if you can find a book that resonates with you. And let's say you were fortunate and you found one that resonated with you. The information may not have been accurate, and it may not have been, you know, something that somebody that doesn't have an experienced background in, you know, healthcare or dementia may take things for granted or get bad information and advice. And then now all of a sudden you're actually hurting yourself in your caregiving journey rather than helping yourself. And that's, I think, one of the things that separates AlzAuthors as well, is that these books are vetted for accuracy, and I'll even say legitimacy. They're not just a book for the sake of having a book. They're accurate, they're beneficial. Yeah, Jean.
Every book that we have promoted and reached out to an author about has to be a personal story. And that's what is the difference in what we do versus what you'll find on Amazon. You know, we don't want anything to do with stages of the disease or drug names or anything like that. We want What helped us as caregivers was reading the personal story of someone else. Even though it wasn't exactly like ours, they all have some kernel of truth in them. And so that has been our guiding light and our single most important criteria in this 10 years that we've developed AlzAuthors.
Yeah. And I would say you're exactly right. And now 10 years down the road from where you were all those years ago, you may not have had such a sense of loneliness because you're finding all these other authors who have written these books and sharing their stories. So you're saying it's not just me, there's others going through it. It may not be the same situation, but circumstances are similar, dementia, caregiving, working, raising a family, all these things. So that may not even be in person and right in your neighborhood, but at least out there are others going through a similar circumstance as you are, which I think is a very big benefit in and of itself.
Mhm.
And that's what led us to, we've always been on like this growth train. What can we do next? What can we do better? So what we added to our just having the books is the podcast, which we can talk about, but from the podcast came the panel discussions and the online meetings that we do conduct for different things. We do the poetry reading every year. We are now in the midst of our film festival, and we invite people to join us to come online and to connect online. And I think that has helped a lot of people. We do have people who come, again and again and again and share their stories or just like to listen. And I think that's a big part of what we do. And then we record everything so that it can be put on the podcast. So others who didn't make the meeting can also, participate in it and see what went on.
Right.
And I think that has been like a really big important part of what we've done. And we've done the same thing with our authors. There are author only events that we've conducted in the past. We've done workshops on craft, on marketing, how to do social media, all kinds of different things. So we've actually provided education to the authors because, our authors, they're not professional writers and professional authors. They are generally, for a lot, caregivers who just manage to tell their story well, but they don't have all that other knowledge and all the other skills that are required. So we reached out to them, and we did a lot of author events as well. So that also builds community and lets people know that they're not alone.
Yeah, absolutely.
We did do that. It isn't just about posting the books.
Right. No, it's definitely been a joy to watch the evolution. I shared with you, Marianne, when you and I first talked maybe 6 years ago when we started All Home Care Matters, that we had been big supporters and followers of AlzAuthors just through our company, and then now here we're entering the space. And I think the AlzAuthors podcast and our podcast started both in 2020. And so we were starting that around the same time, and then had you on, and then Jean was on, and Vicki, and a whole lot of AlzAuthors as well. And just seeing the different ways you guys were coming up with trying to get these resources and support out to these people. It wasn't now just limited to the blog posts and the authors events and the new titles coming out and things like that. You continued evolving to adapt to where people needed you. It may not be in a book, it might be a film festival, it might be any number of things. So it's been just incredible to see that evolution. And I know it's just benefited countless people. Vicki, I want to jump to you really quick, talking about all these great memories and different ways that AlzAuthors has evolved. As time goes forward and you look back on the past 10 years, what do you think that you'll personally remember most about AlzAuthors?
These two women and the other board members that I've been able to get closer to. I think that it has made a tremendous difference in how the second half of my life has been as far as a listening shoulder, a listening ear, somebody who's been there, done that, someone who can talk about it. These people, yeah, they're the best. I wish I could move our states a little closer together, maybe. I also think about the people that I've been fortunate enough, the authors, to actually meet in person. Because we've done a lot of traveling, my husband and I've met people in our AlzAuthors that live all the way from California to the East Coast. And that's, wow, it's been great to actually the people meet the author. Is kind of what it was. Yeah, I think that's one of the most, the people, when you get to the bottom line, it's the people
Yeah.
that make life memorable.
Yeah, 100%. Jean, I just want to go to you briefly again. And, you're hearing all of these stories and everything. Do you have a single story that you remember that has stood out the most? It's going to be hard to beat the hotel story, but I didn't know if maybe you had another one that you're really fond of.
Gosh. Well,
Oh, I know what story we have. It's the story of Scott.
Oh, meeting him on the airplane.
That I met on the plane.
Yeah, Marianne's picking up guys off the airplane.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm on this, again, I'm on a plane. I'm heading down in Naples, Florida for the team. We had a whole team meeting. Only one person didn't make it. And we were staying at Jean's family's condo. So I'm on the plane. And I strike up a conversation with this man that is sitting next to me. His name is Scott. And he lives in Naples. He's on his way home. And he's got this little tiny puppy and sitting on the floor in front of him in a bag, and, puppy carrier. So that initiated the conversation because I had been sitting there for like 2 hours. And then all of a sudden I realized there's a dog at my feet. So we start talking. And where are you going? And so I say, well, I'm going to meet my friends. I have these friends. We started this organization together. What's it about? It's about Alzheimer's. My father has Alzheimer's, he tells me. Well, that just ends up having this whole story. We start talking about his father and his Alzheimer's. He cries. And he's a media person. He does marketing in media. So he's like somebody that we need to know. And so we're talking more and more. And he's like, well, I have a daughter. I have a daughter. I only have one child. Yeah, it's a daughter. My daughter is this age. Oh, yeah, my daughter is the same age. I mean, we just had all these things. Everything one of us would throw out, the other one had the same thing. So it got to the point at the end, there was another woman sitting next to him on the other side. And she's like, oh, my God, I can't believe this conversation. She said, this is just unbelievable. So we exchanged information. And then while I got back, I landed and I told them the story, Jean and Vicki and Catherine. And lo and behold, we ended up meeting up with him again. I contacted him and he went out to dinner with us. And he gave us so much information. He let us pick his brain all about marketing and media and podcasting. Oh, that was the other thing. I said, I'm starting a podcast. And he was like, oh, my God, I'm a podcaster. Yeah, that was it. I mean, everything I said, he did and vice versa. So, yeah, he gave us all kinds of information, how to start a podcast, marketing, the media. And then later on, a few months later on, we actually got on screen with him, and he gave us a professional tutorial on on doing Zoom and how to present yourself online and how to look good and all of that. I mean, he became like a really good friend. And that was just like this random thing. I just was lucky enough to sit next to him and I mean, if it wasn't for the dog, I never would have said anything to him.
That's incredible. Yeah, Jean.
That really changed the trajectory of AlzAuthors. That meeting between Marianne and Scott, because we had been reaching out to authors and we were having them write a 500-word blog post for us, which people, would read and come to know the author a little bit. But after this encounter between Marianne and Scott, Marianne was determined, we are starting a podcast. And so every author that came in from that point on, and also reaching backward to, Marianne and Christy Yates did a podcast with. And so that, we came to realize that people maybe don't have time to read a book, but they would listen to a podcast in the car or while they were doing something else. And we could introduce that author and their story to people through that podcast. And it changed our whole direction unexpectedly, very unexpectedly.
Yeah, that was great. That was really was life changing, like Jean said, because once I just took it, because we were going back and forth about the podcast, and we knew we wanted to have a podcast, but nobody wanted to do it. That was the issue. And we were being urged on by Chris McClellan at the Whole Care Network. He was the one who planted that seed. And after we met Scott and he helped us, then we knew, like, I knew it was meant to be, because that was the thing. You know, I think that was really it came up early in the conversation that I was going to start a podcast.
Does Scott know the tremendous effect he had on change, like Jean said, changing the trajectory?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we haven't talked to him in a while, but yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think might have been sitting there reading this podcast book that I had bought. So starting a podcast, and maybe he saw it and he was asked me about it. Oh, you know what it might have been? He had a iPad and a pencil, and he was writing notes about something. And maybe that was when I looked at it and saw him doing that, and it was something that I was interested in. And I said, "Excuse me, but can I ask you what you're doing? And how do you like that?" And just, we started this conversation. Then I noticed he had the dog, and we started talking about the podcast. And I mean, it was just like, it was like an onion. It just kept peeling away all these different layers of commonality that we had together.
Yeah.
And it was emotional. He was crying. And then the lady that was sitting next to him, she's like, "And my mother has Alzheimer's too."
Wow.
It's like, everybody has Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
When you say that, all of a sudden you discover everybody has somebody with Alzheimer's.
Yes, absolutely. Which just shows the importance of AlzAuthors all the more, Yeah. Yeah. I want to, so Vicki, what are you seeing and foresee as the future of AlzAuthors?
That it lives on without us. That would be the greatest thing, is if when we're done being part of it, that it lives on. Yeah.
How about for you, Jean?
I would agree with Vicki that it goes on and continues to help people. It will change, in whatever form it goes on. I just hope it continues to support caregivers.
Absolutely. How about for you, Marianne?
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement on that, because we all knew that the day would come when we would no longer, be a team anymore, and not everybody. We didn't realize that everybody would retire at the same time. But that's how it worked out. In the midst of celebrating our 10th anniversary, we came to the conclusion that we needed to take a change. So we are very grateful that it has found a home with All Home Care Matters, and where we feel it will be supported and nurtured and continue in the way in which we've nurtured it. I never thought that it was my plan that I would continue with AlzAuthors as my retirement job or my project after into my retirement, which just started like a month ago.
Yeah.
So, it was kind of like when we decided that we were going to disband our team, really kind of threw me.
I think it threw all of us.
I didn't want it to end, and then, with our the decision to move it to the All Home Care Matters platform, I think it gives it like a whole new life. So we're very grateful for that, Lance, and that you've given us this opportunity, because otherwise, the other plan was we had enough money to just let the website live on until the money ran out, and that would have been the end of it.
Right. Yeah. And, and I will say, to you ladies, I just, and you've known this for years now, I just have the greatest respect and admiration for each of you, and also, for AlzAuthors and the work you've done. And, when given this, enormous, vote of confidence to, continue AlzAuthors into your retirement with my team and I, we're very honored and humbled by it. And, just listening to your stories, it just really resonates with me, because, just like us with All Home Care Matters and you with AlzAuthors, we didn't start this to make it a job as far as like, an income. We started it to help these families. For us, we were doing what we're doing with All Home Care Matters, except locally and regionally. And then COVID hit, and we said, how can we still help these caregivers out there? We're doing it with our company, but how can we reach more people on a greater level? And then, we started All Home Care Matters because we wanted to have a place where, like with Jean, we don't want somebody to sit there and feel like they're the only ones in the world going through this, because as we know, there's, 64 plus million people out there caring for a loved one, most of them with, some form of dementia. And, being able to, keep in the integrity and the vision of AlzAuthors going, is something, we take great responsibility for, and we're looking forward to it. And I just, have the greatest respect for each of you, and, for the other ladies as well. I would say I know the three of you probably better than the others. But everyone at AlzAuthors, the motive was the heart, right? It wasn't to get rich. It wasn't to be famous. It was to help. And I've always said, your success comes from your motive, and if you have the right motives, I think the success follows. And you just look at where AlzAuthors has came in 10 years, it's incredible. I think, Marianne, you said this in a meeting we had the other day where, and I've repeated it since then, AlzAuthors is a one of a kind. And I don't mean a one of a kind and it's so great it's one of a kind. That's true, but it's a one of a kind in the sense no other illness or disease has a site dedicated to over 400 titles and resources and blogs and podcasts just to that illness or whatever the affliction may be, except for AlzAuthors. It's a trusted home for people that can find that, that support and that bond and those relationships with others that have gone through it or who are going through it. And I just think it's incredible.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we have all worked tirelessly as volunteers. There's no one on the
Yes.
payroll. We have no payroll. Everybody dedicates their own time and energies and resources to
Yes.
keeping this thing going. And what we've been working on lately, as we break down or dissolve our 501c3 nonprofit status, which we have been a nonprofit for many years, is the building of custom caregiver collections, which we've been shipping out to organizations all across the country that are anywhere from 30 to 35 books from our collection that we are personally selected for these organizations to suit their needs and given to them free of charge. So that's helping get books into the hands of caregivers, but it's also helping our authors too, to see
Yes.
that their book is being given to caregivers and to people that they intended them for. So we've always served both the caregiver and the author. It's kind of like we have a two-tiered mission there. Our audience is of two different types, serving both. So we've been doing that. How many have we sent out, Jean? You're in charge of that
50,
project.
like
We
53.
have sent out 55, I believe, right as of now. And something that just makes me really proud of this effort is that by sending out one more, we will have sent out every author's book somewhere. All 400 books have gone somewhere. And I think that speaks to our heart and our mission. It always was about the books, about the authors, about providing support. And even as we dissolve our assets here, it still remains that way.
Yeah, it was a very good use of the resources.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to send out all of those books. And they went to different types of organizations, support groups, memory cafes, places where caregivers gather. We sent some to the Penn Memory Center in Pennsylvania, and to the caregiver organization at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City, places like that. And tiny little support groups. I think the next one might be to a temple in New York, another temple in New York, because I had given one to the temple in my town about a year ago. And then we also sent one to the local Hudson Valley Alzheimer's Association. So it's a variety of different things. We sent some out to All Home Care Matters, to the home care agency, and also to the Exposed Dementia Conference. They've received more than one, I think, to have books to give away at their conference. Whether they want to raffle them off, whether we let them decide how they're going to disseminate the books. But we're really proud of that initiative.
Yeah, I want to add, Marianne, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but as you were saying how, you're serving the caregiver and the author, I just, I think of you and Vicki and Jean and, Anne and Andrea. You can keep naming all the names. Oftentimes the author and the caregiver are one and the same, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
90% of the time,
Right.
probably. The books are written from real lived experience.
Yes, absolutely. Marianne, as we're closing out, what are you going to personally miss the most?
Well, I'm going to miss my friends, and I'm going to miss all the new ideas that would have come our way, and setting up new projects and stuff, because that was what I was like always good at. They always said I'm the popcorn. I'm just constantly popping up with new ideas. Like the film festival and building that and putting all that together. We're publishing a book coming out early next year, our 6-word memoir book. So that's a project that I'm working on. So it's been a labor of love for me, and also an outlet for my creativity. So I'm going to miss that. I'm certainly going to miss all my friends, seeing them and meeting with them, and not just the ones on our team, but we have a much wider team that consists of the authors and other organizations like yourself, all the podcasters and platforms and things that we are associated with. So I'm sure I'll still continue with that, as I am going to continue with the podcast and working with you, Lance. So there will be some of that still remaining, and I have other things going on that I'll be working on too. So I'm never idle.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I also want to mention, Jean mentioned blue hydrangeas. Recently you were on All Home Care Matters to share. You just came out with the prequel to blue hydrangeas. You want to talk about that for a moment? Because that's still pretty new.
Yeah, Blue Hydrangeas is my initial book that helped to launch AlzAuthors. It's Blue Hydrangeas, an Alzheimer's love story. But I went back and I wrote 2 prequels to that. One is called Christmas at Blue Hydrangeas, and then the latest is called A Wedding at Blue Hydrangeas.
Yes.
So the wedding, it goes back long before there's Alzheimer's for the heroine in the story, Sarah. And she's planning her son's wedding at her bed and breakfast. It's on Cape Cod. And there's all kinds of unexpected disturbances that arise during the last 5 days of trying to put together a perfect wedding. She's just, determined that this is going to be the wedding of the season. And it's fun. It has a lot of funny things to it, and maybe, even some precursors to her memory problems that come to a head a couple decades later. So that was a lot of fun. I wrote a book, and it was about Alzheimer's, but then there also was about an inn, and that was what captured a lot of people's interest. They wanted to know more about the inn and more about Cape Cod and stuff. So that's why I wrote those other books.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Vicki, we had mentioned your book too. Did you want to share any about your book?
About my first book, Somebody Stole My
Someone
Heart?
Stole My Heart. Yeah.
Sure, I'd be happy to share why. Okay. I didn't know I was going to write a book. Many of us don't when we start out. I was mostly just keeping a log on my computer. It was sort of, for me, a way to let go of the stresses of the day. It came out the ends of my fingers as I typed it. And I did this for probably a year or so. And then I kind of went, I'm writing a book. I wrote part of the book and didn't even know I was writing one. So then I proceeded to continue keeping my notes. And then I started remembering things that had happened in the past and going back and adding those into the appropriate place, and, trying to make it all have some continuity and go, stick together. See, there's one of my glitches right there. What was I talking about? So it was a lonely journey. If I hadn't had, my husband, he helped see me through it. But there's a wound there. I lost both my parents. My mom passed. My dad passed a year and a day later, which was a little strange. But just, getting through that pain, the pain of loss. I was a single caregiver since my parents were in assisted living, but there was no other family member that was involved in their care. So I think just knowing that you aren't alone, reading books. I'm sorry to hear that, reading, I think I read something like 40% of people haven't read a book in several years or whatever. Are we losing that ability? I hope that we can continue with the written word, even though podcasts are wonderful and perfect for people on the go. There's something about holding a book in your hands and savoring, knowing, oh my gosh, this person went through the same thing I did. So I think that, I don't know, the books are in some ways timeless. They aren't, yes, maybe there are some things that are done a little different now than they were 10 years ago, but I think generally speaking, our books will stand the test of time.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And Vicki has written 2 other wonderful historical novels based on her family's experiences as well. And I highly recommend them.
Thank you, Marianne. Thank you so much. Yes, I wrote about my great-grandmother in Michigan, living in Mount Clemens, which may be a place you've heard of before, Lance.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of my family is from Michigan. So, yes, her journey that brought her to Montana. She was an intrepid woman. My third book was about my dad's parents. And it takes place mostly in North Dakota.
Okay.
But turn of the century work.
Yeah.
I love writing.
Yeah, that's incredible.
They're terrific. And Jean has also written a series of books for children.
As a third grade teacher, I knew that genre well. And my life was blessed with triplet grandchildren. Very shortly after I wrote Alzheimer's Daughter and before it was published. And there was a big dog in the family, a diva dog, who was like, what has happened to my status? And so the first book is written through her voice as the disgruntled dog. And then
disgruntled dog.
Yeah. And then the second book is her falling in love with the triplets and becoming a parent to them. And then my other grandchildren wanted a book about their dog. So Julia's Journey is about Lexi's cousins' family. So those were, whereas Alzheimer's Daughter was so painful to write, that children's series has just been, I would just laugh as I was writing. It was very healing to do that.
They're very delightful books.
Yeah. Well, I just want to mention, Marianne alluded to it briefly, in the future, not too distant future, Marianne's going to go back to podcasting, and we're going to be producing it and publishing it on all of our channels and on the AlzAuthors website. And we hope people will tune in. And I have a feeling maybe Marianne has a couple of her guests already on the screen. I'm not sure, but I could see that as a future episode, where are they now kind of thing. I think that would be a lot of fun. But I just, have just nothing but great admiration and respect for each of you ladies. And, anytime we can help with anything, please feel free to reach out. And I look forward to continuing to stay in touch with each of you. And just thank you for your contribution to, to this industry and to, just the overall awareness of dementia, because I think AlzAuthors played an integral role in that. And it definitely deserves to get that recognition. And, we're going to take great care of it and, hopefully, continue it on for many, many more years to come.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, we appreciate you more than you maybe
Yeah.
even
My pleasure, guys.
understand.
My pleasure. Well, thank you. And Gene, I didn't make any Ohio jokes today because you got a free pass. Have a great holiday season, guys. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us today here at All Home Care Matters. All Home Care Matters is here to help families as they navigate these long-term care issues. We invite you to visit us at allhomecarematters.com, where there's a private, secure, fillable form where you can give us feedback, show ideas, or if you have questions. Every form is read and responded to. And remember, you can listen to the show on any of your favorite podcast streaming platforms or watch the show on our official YouTube channel. Just make sure that you hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. We'd also like to say thank you again to Marianne, Gene, and Vicki for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you again here at All Home Care Matters.
Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to you joining us again on another episode of All Home Care Matters. To learn more about the show and to connect with us, visit us at allhomecarematters.com.